Well, surprisingly, Michael Jackson's estate is being sued yet again. And I say surprisingly sarcastically because, deep pocket, dead defendant that can't defend himself means easy target. What's good, people? I'm Attorney John Mobley. I have prosecuted and litigated complex civil and criminal cases for over 30 years, and I'm still actively litigating these cases today. My experience was forged in the legal trenches, going toe-to-toe with some of the best lawyers in the country, and I'm still actively litigating these cases. On this podcast, I'll be giving no-holds-barred, hard-hitting legal analysis on the legal issues that are gripping the nation. But you want to hear more than just legalese or legal mumbo-jumbo. It's important to have the perspective of a non-lawyer. So my assistant Kayla is joining me in the podcast, and she's going to ask me the tough questions for which you want the answers. So please join me on Legal Deep Dives and listen to me call it like I see it. What's good, people? Attorney John Mobley here. Welcome to Legal Deep Dives. We're here in the club room. With me is my assistant Kayla. She's here to ask me the tough questions that you wanted the answers to. And as always, Kayla, mi casa, su casa. I would ask you how you're doing. I don't think people really care. I think what they want to care about is what's going on with Michael Jackson's estate.
And what exactly is going on? What's the latest news with the Michael Jackson estate? What's the lawsuit about?
Well, surprisingly, Michael Jackson's estate is being sued yet again. And I say surprisingly sarcastically because, deep pocket, dead defendant that can't defend himself means easy target. So what's going on now is there's a family that had a very long and complicated history with Michael Jackson. Their last name are Casio. It's a bunch of siblings. It's brothers and a sister, but they had long relations with Michael Jackson, way back in the 90s. They've always been staunch supporters of Michael. They've always defended him publicly, even after the Netflix series that showed Michael in an extremely unfavorable light. They've always supported him publicly and been staunch supporters of Michael Jackson and his legacy. Well, now that same family is involved in litigation with the estate. They've sued the estate, going back on what they said before. Now they're claiming that Michael sex trafficked them in the 90s for a decade, plying them with drugs, sexually assaulting them, raping them, and he did all this while they were children.
And like you said, they had such a good relationship with him for so many years. I think it was like over 25 years. Why now are they bringing this up? Why, after the previous lawsuit where they didn't find any evidence, are they coming for him? And is there any sort of like statute of limitations on this? I mean, like you said, he can't defend himself. He's not here. How is the estate going to fight this? Like, what do they do?
Well, it's funny. I mean, the laws have changed a lot from state to state over the last few years, where they have extended statute of limitations for crimes involving sexual assault of minors and sex trafficking. That's why a lot of cases that could not have been prosecuted are now being prosecuted. And what's interesting about this case is what you found out is, although they've been publicly staunch supporters, back in 2019, they actually went to the family and threatened to go public with similar allegations that he had somehow sexually assaulted them, and entered into an agreement with the estate to receive about $4 million to not say anything. And that was about 2019. So at this point, they have decided that that was not enough money. And and by the way, I do want to add that in that previous lawsuit or claim they made, there really wasn't a lawsuit, just a threat of a lawsuit. As part of that payment, there was a condition of confidentiality that they agreed they wouldn't publicly discuss any of this stuff. Well, at this point, clearly that agreement means nothing to them because they've publicly made the allegations, and they filed a lawsuit trying to get the previous agreement rescinded, saying that basically the $4 million wasn't enough. So does it sound like a money grab? Yeah, it does sound like a money grab. And it is difficult because, as you indicated, Michael is not alive. Mm-hmm. So he can't defend himself. They can allege dates, details, particulars, and he's not around to give statements that will be harmful to their credibility or their veracity or provide evidence that would contradict what they're saying. So it does put the estate at a disadvantage to some extent.
Do you think the family agreed to the $4 million because there was some truth behind it and they were trying to get them to not say anything? Or do you think they were just trying to not put another damper on Michael Jackson's legacy?
There's no doubt in my mind they were just trying to keep it quiet. I mean, there's always so many allegations. You kind of have to know when something like this, any history of sexual impropriety comes out, people are going to come out of the woodwork. It happens in every case. And at some point, yes, some allegations are true. They're not all true. I believe that a lot of them are false, and people are just, seeing opportunities to make some money from celebrities, misfortune. And there's no doubt in my mind that an amount that small, that was something I considered nuisance value, where they go, something, the money we spend to litigate this case, more, unnecessary attention to his reputation and harm to his reputation. We're better off paying $4 million now to make this thing go away, because if not, the negative attention could actually cost more money when it comes to litigation, lawsuit, merchandising, and the value of the brand. All those things decrease the more you have allegations like that.
And I don't know how true this is because, I haven't researched this side of things as much as the Michael Jackson side, but I saw where Frank, which is one of the siblings, was being sued for civil extortion. Do you think that that is going to have any role in which way this turns out? Do you think that that's going to hold any legal power towards the outcome?
I think that short answer is yes. I think, and I can't express an opinion as to whether or not they're actually victims or not. However, I can say that the way they have handled themselves has made them less credible and less reliable as witnesses. And again, you have inconsistent statements, publicly for, over 2 decades, publicly supporting him and denying any type of inappropriate, misconduct or on his part. Then making the claim that threats, which basically, were tantamount to extortion, for the first $4 million. And then after that, well, they say that's not enough money. We're going to come back and try to get more money. I mean, it makes them look very unsympathetic. I mean, they're grown adults and they're engaging in inconsistent conduct, making inconsistent statements, but they all involve them getting more money. And of course, you may have heard about the issue with the songs and the fake tracks.
And Sony and selling it to the estate. Yes, I actually was going to ask you about that.
Okay, what's your question?
So I was actually going to ask you about that and what you think that has an impact on, because they refused. The Michael Jackson estate said, we're not buying that. And they tried to demand more money from them. Again, this would be like the 3rd time now. Do you think that they're going forward with these accusations because they wouldn't buy the songs?
Well, I think that it all kind of goes to the same theory that this family, the Casio family, just sees the Michael Jackson estate as just a source of revenue for when they want money. And now to give you some context to, is what we're talking about, the Jackson estate was releasing a posthumous album, an album after Michael died, of some songs and tracks that were unreleased. And a member of the Casio family found out about it and went to the family and said, hey, we've got 3 or 4 more songs that Michael sang that were not released that you guys didn't know about, and, make those part of the album. So of course they would sell those to the estate. And those songs actually made it to the album. And as soon as the album got released, there was a huge outcry from Michael Jackson's fans saying those 3 songs were not sung by him. That was not his voice. And actually what happened is determined that those songs were actually sung by an impersonator, not by Michael Jackson. Sony actually got sued over it, and they removed the tracks from the album. And again, the estate was relying on the representation of the Casio family, the same family that's suing them again, about the tracks and songs being legitimately sung by Michael. So again, I mean, this family has a history of just dishonest, fraudulent conduct toward the Jackson estate. And it seems like they're just going back to them time and time again as a source of revenue whenever they want money. So I do believe, again, while I can't say for a fact whether or not any of them were sexually assaulted by Michael Jackson, I can say their conduct, the way they're just always finding ways to either try to defraud the estate or sue the estate and come back for more money again, it makes them extremely unreliable, unbelievable witnesses for any type of allegation against Michael Jackson.
Thank you for clearing that up. Now, the big movie that is coming out in April, I'm sure the answer is going to be the same, money grab. What effect do you think that had for them pushing this so soon? Do you think that's why all of a sudden they're thinking, yes, let's go ahead and get these accusations out now?
Yeah, there's no doubt in my mind that from a strategic timing standpoint, the threat would be to try to get the case settled and make the allegations privately prior to the movie being released. Because the strategy would be, well, if these allegations come out, it's going to hurt the movie sales because, you get canceled. If people think you're a pedophile, they think you're a creep, you're a celebrity. Well, what happens is your brand gets canceled. People stop selling your albums. People stop airing your TV shows and your video specials. They don't go to your movies. And so all the revenue and royalties that come from that get cut off. So my thought is they knew the movie was coming out. They knew there was an opportunity for the estate to make a lot of money. They invested money in their production. This is a big source of revenue for the estate. My guess is they went to them prior to the release to try to, settle it privately, hoping to extort more money out of them because, or thinking the case would have more value or they pay more money to get this settled so it wouldn't ruin the sales and the rights to the release. So I'm assuming that's what happened, and the estate said, forget it, we're not doing it, and that's why they went ahead and filed a lawsuit. Now, whether or not it's going to have any negative effects on the films and the movie, I kind of don't think so at this point. I think, if anything, it's probably going to just draw more attention to it because it's going to keep his name out there, and and what's going to happen is, the interest is going to increase because whenever you have a movie or a film, you got to promote it. People have to know about it. People have to be interested in watching it. But now they're going to get some more free publicity, And what's probably going to happen is they're going to go watch this documentary. They'll watch a film, and they'll probably start digging up in all this Michael Jackson stuff, watching his videos on YouTube. So they'll probably end up making more money in the long run because of this lawsuit.
He certainly is trending everywhere I've looked. But as somebody that is not too familiar with the legal side of things, I read that they're debating on going to private attribution. Am I saying that right?
Arbitration.
Okay, well then I read it wrong online. So if it does go private, what will the public be allowed to know? Is it all or nothing? Or, are we allowed to know certain things?
Well, it's interesting, Kayla, because, one of the lawsuits with one of the siblings, the Jackson family has filed a lawsuit against him to force the case into arbitration, which was a victory. And let's kind of talk about what arbitration is. Oftentimes in contracts, a party will have a contract will have a clause that if there's a legal dispute, the case has to be resolved in arbitration as opposed to a jury trial or a bench trial in court. Arbitration means that you don't go in front of a judge, you go in front of an arbitrator, a retired judge, a retired attorney that's got a good reputation, and you have your trial, your hearing before that arbitrator in arbitration. And whatever the arbitrator decides is the proper outcome, that's a decision. So you don't go in front of a judge, you don't go in front of a jury, there's no appeal, you kind of stuck with that. And of course, it's a private process, it's not an open process like a courtroom. So what that means is you don't get to air everything in public. And if you don't get a result you like, you're stuck with it. And there was a prior agreement with that particular sibling, Cassio, that they resolved, and it was resolved. The agreement had an arbitration clause in it. And what Cassio was trying to do was sue the estate, void the prior agreement, and go into court. And the Jackson estate's attorneys were actually successful in having the arbitration clause in force. So it's going to be a private hearing for which you will have no appeal.
Yeah.
So that's good for the estate, not so good for him.
Yeah. After 15 years of him, being dead, rest in peace, how are they going to gather evidence for this? I've never really seen a situation where the estate, me personally, I've never really seen where the estate was being sued for something. How do they go about this? How do they prove that, he's innocent or guilty? What is going to be the process for that?
Yeah, in a process like this, the estate, the person being sued doesn't have to prove anything. The burden of proof is on the person making the allegations. So now, of course, the difficulty in this case is You don't have a live witness that can give you information, the attorney information that would assist in defending himself. So the case is still going to be made on attacking the credibility of the witness. So, and that's something you would do in any case. Now they're hamstrung to some extent because they don't have someone to say, hey, tell me about, what he did and what he was doing. You don't have Jackson to do that. However, they can still investigate the case. They can still interview people that know the Casios, associates, neighbors, co-workers, get their prior record, get their tax returns, prior lawsuits. Mike, if I was defending this case, I would probably start looking at their financial records to show that they're having money problems.
Oh, yeah.
You'll see a lot of debt because that gives a motive. I mean, you already have the motive that it's a money grab, but if you see, okay, well, now, you're $500,000 in debt, you declare bankruptcy, your house is in foreclosure, you're behind on the rent. Yeah, that gives them motivation to kind of make a money grab. If they've made prior public, statements that are inconsistent with the allegations, and I'm certain they have. I mean, you go back and look at every video interview they've given, every statement they've given to law enforcement and the media, and you take all the different times they have publicly stated that Michael Jackson, was not inappropriate with them. He never did anything with them. They never witnessed anything inappropriate. And you play that for them over and over and over again, and then get them to admit that, yep, that's what they said. And of course, they're going to try to lie. They're going to say, well, we were forced to say that. We were right now they're saying they were brainwashed.
Manipulated.
Yeah, they'll say all those, but and the question becomes, how believable is that? These are adults that have kind of gone back and forth with different statements over the years. And anytime they come forward, they're not coming forward for a criminal prosecution. They're not coming forward to help other victims. They're coming forward for one reason: give me the money. So the question becomes, how credible are they going to be? And I don't think they're going to be very credible. I have a phrase, if he lies to you in small things, he lies to you in all things. So I think that's what's going to come down to to bite the Casios in their butt on this one.
Thanks. I look forward to hearing more about this and seeing where this goes in the future. Hopefully we find out soon.
Well, that's all I got on the Michael Jackson lawsuit situation. You may not agree with me, but I really don't give a damn. However, I would like it if you do me a favor, post your comments and call it like you see it. That's it. Well, that's all I got, but I do appreciate you taking the time to join me on this legal deep dive. I think it's always fun to discuss these topics, tell you what I think, and get your feedback. I would really appreciate it if you took the time to like the video, subscribe to the podcast, and also I'd appreciate you sending me your comments so we can discuss the topics you want to hear about. That's it.